You may have heard that a lot of folks on the autism and ADHD spectrums, especially women on those spectrums, have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or hypermobility spectrum disorders. This has been a hot topic in the neurodivergent community for some years, and it just so happens to be the other major branch of my research. My name is Dr. Emily Casanova. I'm an autism researcher, and I'm also on the autism spectrum. Interestingly, I actually came to this work thanks to my own diagnosis of generalized hypermobility spectrum disorder back in 2018. As I joined online EDS groups wanting to learn more about my new diagnosis, I quickly realized there were a lot of zebras talking about their autism and ADHD or that of their kids, and I thought, well, this can't be a coincidence. And that's kind of how I got into this whole area of research. Now, as an aside, zebra is the name the EDS community uses for itself based on the old medical saying, when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras, which implies that a clinician should entertain the most likely and common diagnostic possibilities before entertaining the unlikely or rare ones. Well, in this case, we're the unexpected zebras, and of course, we tend to baffle our physicians accordingly. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you may be wondering, what exactly is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? Ehlers-Danlos is a group of hereditary connective tissue disorders that have their roots in abnormal collagen production, maintenance, or turnover. Now, what does that mean? First off, collagen is a type of protein your body produces. There are many types of collagen, and a subset of them are vital in providing structural support in between the cells of your body. So picture it like the glue that holds you all together. There are also other molecules like glycosaminoglycans that also in turn help to hold collagen proteins together, and some of these are also implicated in some types of Ehlers-Danlos. Anyways, all of these molecules provide a scaffolding for your cells as they go about their daily business. And in the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, some aspect of that collagen production, maintenance, or turnover is faulty, leading to weak and vulnerable connective tissue. People with EDS and hypermobility spectrum disorders have symptoms like hypermobility or double jointedness. They're prone to partial or full dislocations of joints, chronic joint pain, and the skin is often affected to varying degrees, such as symptoms of easy bruising, poor scarring, and stretchy skin. Now, they're also prone to a variety of other symptoms depending on their type of EDS or even just normal variability across people with a given condition. Now, there are currently 15 recognized types of EDS, most of which are rare, occurring in less than 1 in 1,000 people, if not far less. One of those types, the hypermobile type, however, appears to be far more common, and it's thought to make up to 80 to 90% of the entire Ehlers-Danlos population. Unfortunately, this is the only type of EDS where we don't have a good idea of the genetics underlying it. I suspect, given its higher prevalence, that's probably because its roots are far more complex, making them harder to identify in traditional genetic studies. There's currently a large whole genome sequencing study on the hypermobile type called the HEDGE project, so we're all kind of eagerly awaiting publication of those results. They're supposed to come out sometime, hopefully in 2025. So we'll see if a few more EDS types aren't added to the growing list. Now, you may be wondering why EDS and hypermobility spectrum disorders seem to co-occur so frequently with autism and ADHD. Now, while I admit we don't yet have a sure answer to this, it's entirely possible that there are multiple reasons. I do foresee 3 distinct possibilities. One, that the funky collagen is directly affecting brain development. Now, while the links are a bit sparse at the moment, we do know that it's necessary to have good connective tissue lining the outside of the brain in order to allow neural progenitors, which are kind of a brain-specific neural stem cell-like thing, in order to allow them a foothold to grab onto while the brain is developing. Otherwise, brain development might be affected, like we see in EDS that's associated with the FLNA mutations. People with this kind of EDS also exhibit clusters of neurons in their brains that haven't successfully traveled to the places they were supposed to end up at. These misplaced clusters of cells are known as heterotopias, and they unfortunately usually make the person prone to seizures. Now, another possibility is simply that the gene mutation is expressed both in the brain and in the fibroblasts of the skin and the joints that produce the connective tissue. A good example from some of our ongoing work is that we see an EDS phenotype in women with Fragile X premutation, which is a condition associated with certain types of mutations in the FMR1 gene. These mutations affect both the brain and the connective tissue. Now, the third possible link between autism, ADHD, and Ehlers-Danlos may be more indirect. We know, for instance, that Ehlers-Danlos and the hypermobility spectrum disorders have really high rates of co-occurring immune disorders like mast cell disorders. In autism in general, we already know that immune disorders or infection during pregnancy are associated with an increased likelihood that the child will be autistic. Some immune molecules are able to cross the placental and blood-brain barriers, and they also play important and measurable roles in brain development. So just because we call something an immune molecule doesn't mean that its only effect is on the immune system. So these immune molecules can definitely influence brain development. Anyways, I suspect those are the three most likely routes that link autism, ADHD, and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, although we may well discover more as we continue to do more studies. Now, if you'd like to read more about this relationship and don't mind delving into the more sciencey side, you might like our 2020 article in the image up above. Just pause the video to grab the title. It's open access, so you should be able to access it freely. I also really like the O-Twist blog as a resource on all things Ehlers-Danlos, so be sure to check that out too. Also, I'm just finishing editing a book for Jessica Kingsley Publishers on this fascinating overlap. It's tentatively titled Issues with Our Tissues, which will likely be in print by early 2025, I think. We've got an awesome group of authors who have contributed to this book. It's a phenomenal mix of clinician scientists, patient scientists, and patients like Wen Lawson, Ann Maitland, and Jan Groh, who happens to run the O-Twist blog I mentioned earlier, and that's just to name a few. So I'll be sure to make a video once the book is released, so definitely stay tuned to the channel for updates. So until we meet again down the autism science rabbit hole,